two small sources of water, and the journey that through a peasant's wedding, nymphs dancing in the full moonlight, and the great city of Prague takes us through the magic of the Czech landscape. All of this and more coming right up on Conducting Pills. Hi, I'm Gianmaria Griglio, I'm a conductor and a composer, and welcome to this episode of Conducting Pills, a series where we take a repertoire piece or a part of it and we analyze it from a conductor's point of view. In this episode, we'll dive into Smetana's The Moldau and its structure with, of course, some conducting tips. As usual, you can jump through different sections of the video by clicking on the links present in the description below. I want to take a second to thank my new patron Gabriel Tivan and to remind you that on my Patreon page you can find all the bonus episodes of Conducting Pills on top of many other patrons' works. And now, let's start. The composition describes the course of the Vltava, starting from the two small springs, the cold and hot Vltava, up to the unification of the two branches in a single flow. The course of the Vltava between woods and meadows, along with peasant weddings and dances of nymphs in full moon nights, on the nearby rocks that form the basis of ruined castles and palaces. The Vltava swirls around the rapid of St.John and then widens and flows towards Prague, passes under the Vyšehrad and then vanishes majestically in the distance, ending its course in the Elbe. With these words, Smetana describes his most popular work. The Moldau is a symphonic poem, part of a symphonic cycle titled Vlast. Vlast, My Homeland, is a group of 6 symphonic poems composed between 1874 and 1879. It was performed in full for the first time in Prague on November 5, 1882, 2 years before the death of the composer, who had long since been completely deaf. And while it is often performed in its entirety, the 6 symphonic poems can also be performed as individual pieces. Smetana combined the formative symphonic poem conceived by Liszt with the ideals of the nationalistic music that were in vogue at the end of the 19th century. However, curiously enough, the main theme of the Moldau is not originally from Bohemia. It comes from the motif of the popular Italian Renaissance song Il Ballo di Mantova, also known as Fuggi, 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 which the mercenary troops raiding Italy, before it actually became Italy, in the numerous conflicts of the 500 and 600 spread throughout Europe. From here, it entered the Slavic folk traditions, from which Smetana drew the main theme for the Vltava. And it reached the Jewish musical tradition as well, becoming part of the national anthem of Israel in 1948. The structure of the piece is what essentially Smetana outlines in his description of it, which, by the way, you can find printed in the score. The symphonic poem begins with the first of the 2 springs with a wavy figures in the flutes. Notice also the tempo marking, allegro, comodo, non agitato, which means comfortably and without agitation. And notice also the wonderful touch of color with the pizzicato of the violins, like little sprinkles of water. The second source appears with the clarinets, soon joined by the violas. The way these water lines are depicted in the music, tailing and interlacing each other, is fantastic. The orchestration gradually thickens. Look at the pedal of the violas on bar 24, turning into 16 notes a few bars later. The undulating movement of the 2 sources is passed to the second violins, violas and cellos, on top of which the main theme comes in, played by the violins. Take a look at the amount of information written out in the score. Triangle, elegant. Violins, violas and cellos, lusingando, which means alluring. Second violins, ondeggiante, which means undulating. The dynamic is piano with small swells. We're still at the beginning of the piece, and overconducting this part will exaggerate the turmoil that will come up later. A very elegant and non-invasive way of conducting this can be achieved by using, for instance, your left hand by registering the line and pulsing every 2 bars instead of every single one. Given the register, baton placement is clearly at waist level, and you can mimic the undulating movement of the music by moving away and towards your body. Horns, trumpets and trombones introduce the section representing the hunting in the woods. The connecting rhythmic element of the 16th is still there, played by the violins. But look at the horns part. The first bar has a dotted rhythm. The second bar mixes the jumps typical of the hunting horns with the rhythmic figures of the first theme. This is really masterful writing. This episode is one long wave. From bar 80 in forte, it grows times and again, climaxing on the E major at letter C, only to gradually come back to a triple pianissimo. And we arrive at a change of scenery, the peasant's wedding. It's a joyful moment where the meter changes to 2/4 and it's characterized by a dancing rhythm, a polka, and the homophonic texture gives the idea of all the guests dancing synchronized. See the 16 notes in the theme, they are the connecting factor to the two previous sections and to the next one. The wedding comes and goes very shortly, again with a wave-like arch of crescendo diminuendo, and leaves room to the full moon night. Flutes and clarinets are back with the undulating motif of the river. The melody is left to the strings with mute, with the harp coming in at the end of each half phrase. We can see the moon reflecting in the ripples of the water and the delicate dances of the nymphs. The atmosphere darkens with the C minor passage, but it's just a moment. Pay great attention to bar 213. The entrance of the low brass and the double bass is particularly delicate for the balance. A crescendo of the orchestra raises the tension, and our 16 notes ferry us to the reprise of the main theme. We soon land in the St.John's rapids. The 16 notes now moving only furiously upwards, the repeated chords of the brass, the head of the theme hiding in the bassoons, parts of the cellos and the basses. Everything contributes to raising the tension. And look at those flutes taking us down the vortex of indomitable forces of the river. The best thing you can do here as a conductor is to stay calm. The more you get agitated, the more confusing it will be. Once the fortissimo has been initiated, keep your gestures small or you will have no way to go for the following section. Più molto, meaning faster. After the rapids, the main theme explodes in full orchestra, more agitated this time and in E major key. At letter L, we land on the Visharad theme, taken out of the first symphonic poem of the cycle. It's a majestic chorale of woodwinds and brass. By the way, you'll find different connections between the Moldau and the other symphonic poems in the bonus episode on Patreon. The strings underneath play different variations of wavy motifs in duplets, triplets and septuplets. The generated overlapping rhythms, helped by the cymbals, produce the effect of violent splashes of water against the rocks surrounding the ancient castle. It's the triumphal entry into Prague. The Moldau embraces the Golden City, marking the culmination of its journey, the arrival at the destination. But then, slowly, it leaves. The Vltava cannot escape its destiny. It keeps flowing, abandoning the buildings, the monuments and the bridges of the capital until the waters of the Elbe welcome it. And the last part of this symphonic poem has the tones of a farewell to Prague, to life, a farewell to command, because from here on it will be another river to lead the way into the sea. Smetana has, without doubt, captured the many faces of the river flowing through different landscapes of his homeland. The constant of the 16 notes running from the flutes to the violins incarnate the ripples of the surface. The brass instruments underline power or danger. The length of the notes, coupled with the tempo markings, represent the different speeds of the currents. And the melody shows the river changing according to the different landscapes. Smetana captured the essence not just of the river, but of his beloved homeland as he saw it. Music is what life sounds like. Now, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button right below the video and ring the bell so you will be notified every time a new video comes out. You can also show your support on Patreon, just follow the link in the description. Let me know in the comments what you think about this piece and if you have any suggestions for future videos, and I will see you next week with another episode of Conducting Pills when we will go through Elgar's Serenade for Strings. Till then, bye bye.